Welcome to the 2022 Broadcom MTE. My name is Jonathan Hamer, and I will demonstrate using zOSMF how to get the most out of Datacom DB 15.1. I will start with deploying the portable package and progress all the way to applying the most recent maintenance to the Datacom DB 15.1 CSI. What is zOSMF? zOSMF allows you to communicate with the zOS system through a web browser so you can access and manage your zOS system from anywhere. Multiple users can log in to zOSMF using different computers, different browsers, or multiple instances of the same browser. In this presentation, I will demonstrate how to effectively deploy a portable package, utilize workflows to configure the product, and update the CSI to the most recent maintenance. This is the login screen to zOSMF. First, I will log in with my credentials. Now that I'm logged in, I will click Software Management. Then I will click Deployments. You can make this screen bigger if you'd like. I will click Actions, New, and then here is the checklist to the deployment. I will click Specify the properties for this deployment. I will give it a name. I will click OK. I will click Software to deploy. It is very important to remember between these two options, you need to choose Portable Software Instance. Next, you will click Actions, Add from zOSMF, the system you're on, and then the file location. Now that you're here, if you'd like, you can change this name to something more descriptive. Now that you're here, you can change this name to something more descriptive if you would like. And then click OK. Now that you've clicked OK, you can scroll down, and this is the name I just created. I will check mark that. Click OK. And now we are back to the deployment checklist. And as you can see, it's very simple. It will walk you through each step. As you complete each step, the next one will open up. So I will click the third one. We will leave everything like this is. We will choose the target system. Then we will click OK. We will check for missing sysmods. So we will go to the next page. And we will uncheck both of these. And we will uncheck both of these options, the requisite sysmods and fixed categories reports, and the regressed sysmods and whole data delta reports. Then you'll click Finish. And then you will configure this deployment. We'll click Yes. We will click Next. We will click Next again. Once you've gotten to this point, it's important to click this box here. That checks all of these target dataset names. and then I'll show you why in 1 second. So now we're going to click Actions and Modify, which will allow us to modify these DSN names. Okay, now that we're here, we can change this name to anything we'd like. So I'm going to use, okay, and now that I have picked the volume I'd like to use, I will click OK. And now you can see that all the dataset names have been changed. Okay, so I will click Next, Next again, and this may take a few minutes to run. Mine was quick. I will click that check for DCM QA4, and then I will click Finish. I will move to the next step, and as you can see, there is a volume here already, but I'm going to go ahead and use the same volume I used in the last step, and then I will click OK, and this will run, and it may take a few minutes, and that's okay. And then I will submit my deployment jobs. So this will be the last step of the deployment checklist. And then you will check mark each IZ job, Actions, Submit Job, and then this will run, and you can click refresh every few seconds if you'd like to see where it stands. And as you can see, it still says submitted, which is okay. And now you can see that this is complete. So we will move to the next IZ job and submit that as well. We'll click refresh. Okay, and that second IZ job has been submitted, and we will move to step 3. We will click refresh. Okay, so now the third and final IZ job has been completed. We will click close. And now we are ready to move on to the second step, which is performing the workflows. Performing the workflows will now allow you to configure the product now that all these other steps have been completed successfully. That means the deployment is finished. So I will click on Perform Workflows. And now that we're here, we are going to perform the first step, which is the post SMPE workflow. And during this process, it will only require 3 steps. So we will define the software instance variables. We will generate and submit the JCL to update the SMPE dataset names, and we will update load modules with installation-specific include modules. And I always click this box here, All Steps and Workflow, because that means anything in here will be applied to every step that is in the workflow. And in this workflow, there are only 3 steps, but in other workflows, there are quite a few steps, so you don't have to worry about constantly copy and pasting your job card. Change that to 80. Okay, I submitted it. And to help you get more comfortable, so this zOSMF workflows, this is submitting, in essence, JCL members. But instead of you going into the mainframe to do it, you can do it through a web browser. So as you can see, this is giving you all the different details that you would see in a TSO output. You see when it was run, you see the return code here, and then you have the JCL that you submitted, the message log, the sysprint, SMP out. You have all of those different members that you would see in the TSO output. You have that all here. And this is nice because when you're done with this, if you want, you can download all the steps and all the data just in case you want to reference back to it later on. So now that this step is completed, we can click close, and we can now move to the second step. And when you're completing these steps, there's general information you can read in here. There's details, although it usually doesn't contain a whole lot. But primarily, when you work in zOSMF, you are going to want to come to this Perform tab. This Perform tab is where you will fill in all the DSN data sets. And then you will, once they're filled in, for example, I will fill these in, then it will allow you to click Finish, and then it will run this member for you. So as you can see, I've come to this step 2 in the Generate and Submit the JCL to update the SMPE DSNs. So some of these are going to come pre-filled, and then some will have to be filled out as you progress. So you can see these two are blank, and I will fill them in now. Then I will click Next. Okay, and now I will click Finish. And then once again, you see all the, and once again, you can see that the condition code was zeros, and then here's the message log, the JCL if you want to review it to make sure you input the correct DSNs, for example, the sysprint, the SMP out. You are able to review all of these. And when you're getting used to using zOSMF, I do recommend to go through here and just check to make sure that everything looks right so that you get comfortable with it. And so now I will move to the third step. Okay, and here you're not required to fill in anything, but just click Finish to submit the JCL. Okay, and this third step has completed. So that means you've completed the post-SMPE workflow. And so now that this has been finished, we will click Close. We will return to Workflows. So now that we click Close, we came back to the Deployment Checklist and then the Perform Workflows tab that you saw earlier. The first step has been completed, and now we will move to the Datacom DB base install. So this is going to install Datacom DB 15.1. I will make this box bigger. And now that we are in the install workflows, there are a total of 13 steps. And this is going to configure a new DB install. And it's important to note, as you make progress through these different steps, some of the DSNs that you input in earlier steps will be dragged over into the following steps. And I'll demonstrate that for you in some of the steps. So we'll start at 1. And this first step is just giving some general information for people who are newer to this whole process. So we will click Finish. And as you can see, once you've successfully finished and submitted the correct JCL, you will see a check mark here. if there is any issue, you will not see the check mark and it'll be an X and you'll have to redo it. And you can also redo all of these steps as many times as you need. So now we will move to step 2. And now for step 2, there are multiple DSNs that will need to be filled in along with the DASD. And I will go ahead and demonstrate this. And then I will fill in all of these other steps. So I filled in all of these different options and I will click next. Here's just a question: were you able to complete the step manually? And so I will click yes, next, 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 and then finish. Okay, so once again, as you saw in the last steps, we have a condition code of 0, the JCL, sysprint, message log. So now we'll click close. We'll move to step 3. Provide further detail of what I spoke about recently. Now that we're at step 3, you can see that the CXX name has been pulled over from previous steps. The HLQ for the customized libraries has been pulled over, and the HLQ for the Datacom target libraries has been pulled over. So really, I only need to fill in the high-level qualifier for the target libraries for IPC, and then I need to choose which DASD I would like to use. And then click Finish. And once again, condition code 0, message log, JCL, sysprint. This will be a pretty repetitive process. So now that you've seen me do it a few times, I'll do it once more just to give you a little further experience, and then I'll move on to further steps. And you can refer back to how I completed these early steps as you make your way through the later steps. Due to me being a Datacom employee, I won't be required to do this part, the execution of Kyrem. So what I will do is just override complete. And now you see that check mark. So I'll move to step 5. Then once again, I will fill in the remaining DSNs. And you can already see some of my data sets have already been pulled over. CXX, for example, the target library for IPC. So I will fill in the HLQ for the system data sets and the HLQ for the CICS libraries. I filled them in. I'll click Next. Next again. Next again. Next. And Finish. So this is all good news. So as you can see, this is a very repetitive process. So as long as you know what DSNs you'll be using, for example, the target libraries, and then the DSNs that you want to create that will be brand new, as long as you know that, this will be a pretty seamless process. In here, we only need to fill in 2 slots. So this is completed. Condition code 0. Now we will move to step 7. Here's the general information again about what you're doing. Click Perform. Here I will need to fill in the VLS, or the HLQ for IPC, the ADR panels and the ADR libraries, and then the volume I'd like to use. Once I fill that in, next, finish. Moving to step 8. And for step 8, for the continuity of our presentation, I'm going to go ahead and override this as complete. This step 8 is for the CICS definitions. So if you don't use CICS, this isn't necessarily required. But for the continuity of this presentation and for time's sake, I'm going to override this as complete. And then here, step 9 is where we are going to bring up our newly configured DB15.1 install. And in the job statement, I'm going to change this to, we'll call it DB INS for this example, DB install, so I can show you in TSO that it is up and running. So now we'll click next, finish, and then I'm going to show you in TSO what it looks like, because right now you're not going to see anything in here for the status because it will only be considered submitted in zOSMF. So right now it'll just look like this, it'll be active, and then I'll go into TSO to show you that it is up and running. Okay, so here it is. It is up and running. It has the start date, start time. It's executing. It has the system that I submitted it on, which is CA32 for zOSMF. And then we'll go into it and open it. And there you go. There's not much work on it, of course. There's basically nothing, but this is the example of what it looks like. So now I'll go back to zOSMF. And we'll go back through the last few steps. And here you can see that it is marked as submitted. That's all you're going to see. We'll go through these. Condition code 0 for the IVP jobs. Close. Go to the second IVP job. We'll go through the third IVP job very quickly. Condition code 0. Close. And now we are going to shut down Datacom DB15.1. And we'll just call this SHTD, shutdown. Well, SHTDWN. Okay, we will submit this and I'll take you back to TSO. Condition code 0, it has been shut down. And there you go. You can see Here was a database install job that was up from earlier. I submitted the shutdown, and now they both are down. Okay. So now we have completed the full DB config for 15.1. So we can X out of here, refresh, and now you can see both of these top two steps have been completed to 100%. This Datacom DB upgrade, that's not going to be useful as of right now because we are on the most recent version of Datacom DB. Okay, and now that we have completed the workflow step, we're going to move to the last step of the deployment checklist. Specify the properties for the target software instance. So we'll change this name to July 30th. It's important to remember that name also. Click OK. And it would be good to record these three blue boxes: the deployment, target software instance, and the product feature and FMID information for software instance. And we will step through these. This will help you next time you sign out of zOSMF and then you come back in, you'll be able to look for these three different names and it will make it much easier. Okay. So now that we're done with the workflows, I will lightly touch on the receive order and how to do it, and then I will progress to the software update, which will update the DB 15.1 software to the most recent maintenance. Now that we've completed the workflows, we will go to the App Center and then Software Update. To update the Datacom DB 15, we will go to Software Update, and then we will access our newly configured and installed DB 15.1 product. But first, we need to do the receive order. And the receive order is something I'm only going to lightly touch on, and then I will make available documentation on our tech support site that you will need to follow with your security administrator. And what the receive order is it's required in order to utilize the software update feature within zOSMF. There's no way around this part of the software update. You will have to do the receive order first. You will be modifying security, and you will need to be in contact with your security administrator. So here is the hyperlink to what you will need. It will require 3 certificates, security access, and it will also show you an example of the SMPE JCL. So I clicked on the link, and this is what you will need to complete this step. The 3 certificates are all referenced in here. Then you will need to configure one of the 3 security choices, ACF2, TSS, or IBM RAC-F. And once that's done, you will come down here to the receive order command example. And here's the JCL. It's very simple. And I'll show you mine, and then I'll implement the CSI for my newly installed DB 15.1. And this will receive the JCL into your SMPE environment, and then the software update in zOSMF will install those PTFs into your SMPE environment. So here is an example of the receive order. Your job card you'll fill in. The CSI that you want to update you'll use, and you will implement that here. And you can do this for as many DB installs that you have. This receive order, once it's configured, All you have to do is implement the CSI and then just make a few changes, and it's very simple to submit. So I've made a new entry for my CSI that I just created. And here's the JCL. I will submit this, show you the output. It has completed. Receive order at a condition code of 0. And we'll go into it. And then in the SMP out, we'll put a question mark. An S for select. And now for the CSI that I implemented, you can now see all the solutions that have been received into my SMPE environment. And now we'll go back to zOSMF. And here is the software instance. We'll click the CAIT0, and then we will click Install Recommended. And then this process from here is very quick, very simple. It's finding updates. Okay. Recommended updates have been found and are ready to be installed. So we'll click Next. And then we will step through all of these at the top. So it's preparing the updates. Okay, new holds found. Next. Unresolved. Okay, so there's 15 unresolved holds. So we'll click the action, resolve hold. So then next. Next. Okay. And there are 110 solutions that will be installed. So these are what we saw in the TSO output from my receive order. So next. Okay. Let's install the updates. There are no review post installation holds. Next. And we will see the installation summary. And everything has been completed. And like I said, you can download the SMPE output, post installation holds, and all holds if you would like. So just to review, we can close this, close this, close this, and in this video, I covered how to install Datacom DB 15.1